You've been a close champion of WinPE from day one. Given your experience globally, would welcome you to share your perspectives on gender diversity. But before you get there, I want to ask you one question which you asked Stephanie, which is if you had the power to change one aspect in favor of gender diversity, what would that be?
I think it shouldn't be just a nice to have, but a must have for all investors and all companies. And that's my dream. Really, it should be something which is so well accepted, commonplace, that it's really not a topic we have to talk about.
Thank you, Anita. Over to you.
Thank you. So, we all heard from Stephanie amazing numbers. And what was kind of alarming to me was the numbers in Asia really need a lot of improvement. So WinPE and what we are trying to do in WinPE, and for all of the GPs and VCs in the audience, I would hope that you hear these numbers which demonstrate clearly and without a doubt that having more diversity and inclusion is uh, really something which supports economic performance as much as it diversifies your workforce and your sources of capital. At CDPQ, and let me just give a 1 minute explanation. CDPQ is Canada's second largest pension fund manager. We have about $250 billion under management. And we have made diversity and inclusion a part of our daily work. We have brought together, not just by our own example, but also a group of investors who collectively manage $5 trillion called the Investor Leadership Network, where we are focusing very closely on improving diversity and inclusion. And as Stephanie said, we are putting where our money where our mouth is. So concrete actions taken so far. We recently adopted a new diversity and inclusion provision in our policy governing the exercise of voting rights of public companies. This encourages and promotes diversity and allows a range of opinions to be integrated into decision making in these companies. We require a target of 30% of women on board of directors starting in 2022. And if the level is not reached, we will have the option to vote against the directors in charge of nomination. And we are increasingly aware that our collective influence as long-term investors can really start to shift and move the needle. One important aspect that I want to stress on is having the right data and being open to disclosing data. Because once we know where we stand, then we can start taking action. The Canadian Investor Statement on Diversity and Inclusion by the Responsible Investment Association in October 2020, together we took a view that we will disclose diversity data, adopt policies, targets, and timelines, and make them public, and expand the organizational efforts to address barriers. So what are we talking about here? Several programs on mentorship, both internally for our own women employees, as well as externally for women in our investee companies, women in the communities where we are based. And this has had a big impact. Almost 2,500 women at CDPQ have gone through these mentorship and leadership programs. We have more than 70 companies owned by women who have benefited from these programs. So we very strongly believe that we have to be the change that we want to see. Not only that, but we have to lead the change, bringing in other investors. And as we heard from Stephanie, partnership is very, very critical and important. And to conclude, I would say that CDPQ recently we created an equity fund called 25 to the power of 3, and you'll hear later in our case studies that we are presenting about it. So I won't say too much more, except that as the title suggests, this is accessible by companies who have 25% of management, board, and shareholders from diverse backgrounds, including gender. And the most important thing that I wanted to leave as a message that LPs are moving to ensure that diversity and inclusion is not just a nice to have, it is a must have. And so to the PE and VC world, I would say it is good economic sense to put diversity front and center. And I hope you will join us all in celebrating 1 year of women in private equity and VC. And we hope to see action at all of the firms who are our members and the ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita. Anita spoke about some of the initiatives taken by CDPQ that have yielded tangible outcomes in advancing gender balance. It's no longer about the nice to have, right? It is a must have. WinPE is excited to bring forward some of these good practices from different institutions as an example for the rest of us to follow suit. Here, celebrating their journey in the path of gender diversity.